The problem with combat, or the beauty of it, is that it is unpredictable. And if you spend your whole life training the mechanics that your coaches teach you to practice without actually being prepared for a real sparring match or a fight, you're going to be holding yourself back a lot. In today's podcast of the Arshansamimian show, I'm going to be teaching you guys precisely everything I wish I would have known in terms of sparring, combat, and how to actually be prepared when you step onto the mats to spar with another person so that you don't become emotional. Without further ado, let's begin. Number one, timing and accuracy. When I first started training, specifically in Muay Thai and boxing, I was usually very, very timid. And when I started to step into the ring, I was the person who would run away and constantly create distance for myself and the other person in front of me. The problem with that is that I wasn't actually landing any shots and I wasn't really teaching myself how to engage in combat, simply to run away. On the flip side of the coin, I eventually learned to be a little more bold, aggressive, and to actually take punches, and not only that, but to throw punches, especially during harder sparring rounds, which taught me a lot about myself and the person around me. So I did eventually learn to pressure and become more of a pressure fighter, and that's usually what I'm identified as. Whenever I spar people, they tell me that I pressure them a lot and wear them out a lot. The problem with that is that a lot of my punches and my kicks weren't actually landing. A lot of them were just random haymakers that were landing in the air that weren't actually doing any damage or real effect on the other person that I was sparring with. And the thing about combat is that we like to imagine that the person who throws the most punches is the person who's the better fighter. The person who is more aggressive is the better fighter. And at the same time, while it may appear to be that way for people that are less experienced, for those of us who are more experienced, for those of us that have been part of the combat game for a longer period of time, we understand that it's not the person who runs away, nor the person who constantly pressures the other person, but the person who understands how to land combat with accuracy. Who can throw the punches that actually land? Who can actually inflict damage upon the opponent? Who can actually win the match through timed and accurate strikes? Now, how do you go about actually developing this? Well, I'll give you a strategy I used that I learned from a kickboxer named Gabriel Varga. Basically, what you do is you find a little bit of sweat, or you create something on the bag, a little mark. You can write it down with a marker, whatever it is on your heavy bag, or you can just create a designated point on your bag and you look at that. Every time you hit the bag, you try to time your strikes so that you hit that specific part of the bag. You aim and you create a specific part of the bag that you want to land and hit. That will help you in developing your timing and accuracy. And in addition to this, when you're hitting pads, when you're hitting your striking rounds, when you're actually sparring other people, make a point of learning to step back, but at the same time not to be timid. Make a point of actually trying to throw things that land instead of trying to be the person to toughen it out and appear to be the aggressor in front of everybody else. Through this, you will not only develop the ability to cool down your ego and to not become emotional, but you will also become a person who's able to master his emotions and throw shots that land that will help you that much more in the long run. Number two, relaxation. This kind of goes off of timing and accuracy, but again, when I was more of a pressure fighter, which I still am to this day, one problem that I had is that I wasn't really relaxed. And the thing about combat is that you have to learn to be relaxed. This doesn't only go with the martial arts, this goes with any sport, basketball, football. If you don't master your presence of mind, the ability to act boldly without overthinking or underthinking, you're going to be holding yourself back a lot. So how do you develop this? Number one, simple repetition. Constantly bringing it upon yourself to spar with all kinds of people, not only the few that you're comfortable with, but every person. It can go as far as sparring with the guy who's new, who's very athletic and strong, who throws incredibly hard, to learn to toughen your own self up, going with the people who are more advanced, and learning to let go of your ego, and to learn to be okay with getting swept onto your ass, to be okay with getting completely choked out, to be okay with not being the person who has the upper hand. Because it is through these experiences that you develop the ability to develop your own skill set And not only that, to become a more relaxed and present fighter, which is all the more important in combat when you actually step onto the mats, and eventually when you choose to step onto the ring, if that is what you choose to do so. Number 3, body conditioning. You can throw all of the punches and kicks you want, but as Rocky once said in, I believe, the 6th movie or the 5th movie, it is not about how many punches you throw or how hard you can hit. It's about how much you can get hit, how hard you can get hit and keep going. The same thing goes for fighting. You can throw all the punches and the most fancy kicks in the world. You can shadow box with perfection and accuracy. But what I've seen, especially in fighters that have gone shit on for not having the best, most precise pad work in shadow boxing, is that they understand body conditioning. They have grit. And the thing about fighting is it's not always about who throws the most perfect form, who looks the fanciest, who looks the toughest. It's about who has the grit, who can step onto the mat and understand that I might get eye gouged unintentionally, I might get kicked in the balls, my testicles might explode, but regardless, I'm going to keep fighting. If you develop that ability to actually be tough, to toughen yourself up through the match, through meditating, through constantly exposing yourself to conflict, by sparring people who spar harder, by being okay with getting hit a little harder than usual, by being okay with pushing yourself more in your pad work rounds and your shadow boxing and your lifting sessions, you will develop the ability not only to condition your body to prepare yourself for taking heavy hits, but you will also be able to condition your mind, which is that much more important, as mentioned earlier, in the realm of combat. Number 4, frequency. You would imagine that through everything I said, sparring more is better. And the thing that's surprising is that that's actually not true. What I mean when I say that sparring is important is that you have to spar with intention. If you're not sparring with intention to focus, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, you're not going to get yourself anywhere. And especially when you increase your sparring frequency to the point that you're doing it to unlimited amounts of time, the only thing you're doing is holding yourself back. Because in any sport and any activity, when you do so much of one thing, you eventually end up lacking quality. That's why they say when you lift, it's not about who hits the greatest amount of sets, but about who hits the greatest quality. It's not about how many days you're in the gym, it's about the intensity. Just like how Mike Mentzer said it about lifting, the same exact thing goes for combat and any other sport. So therefore, when you're sparring, make it a point of having an intention. And if you walk into your sparring rounds feeling like you have no intention, and the only purpose of your sparring is to have fun and to hit hard and look tough in front of everybody else, then maybe consider not sparring that day and simply hitting a bag work round, hitting the pads. Because again, sparring, like everything, is an art to be perfected, not something to do endlessly until you wear yourself out and don't get anything out of it. Therefore, learn to time your frequency and to train when it actually counts. Last but not least, adaptability. As I've already said, if you don't exactly know what you're doing in a fight, you're going to hold yourself back. And the biggest way that you can hold yourself back beforehand is before the battle even begins. Sun Tzu in The Art of War makes a note that the battle has already been won or lost before it has even begun. You must learn to train your own mind so that when you step onto the mat, you are prepared. And how do you do this? It is to learn to be adaptable. Like Napoleon in old-time warfare, you must be Napoleon in the modern-day realm of combat. When you hit your pad work rounds, when you hit the bag, when you're shadow boxing, don't try to be rigid and do every single thing that the coach tells you to do. Learn to mix in new combinations. Learn to do things that you see through other combat sports. If you're a Muay Thai fighter, learn to implement some form of boxing. Because chances are, the standard Muay Thai basics that you've learned are not always going to save you in a match, especially when you're sparring a completely new guy who doesn't know Muay Thai and is much used to another form of combat. Taekwondo, boxing. I can tell you from personal experience, if you rely 100% on what your coach and the people around you tell you to do, if you reject the idea of doing a specific combination of movements simply because everybody else tells you to conform to whatever the gym tells you to do, you're going to hold yourself back. So remember, every time you go to your combat gym, the purpose of training there is not to be liked by people, is not to conform, is not to fit in, it's not to care about what people think about you. It's to get the most out of it. And how do you do this? It's by being adaptable, learning and picking up on everything that your coach and the people around you teach you, but learning to mold it and shape it into your own particular style, where you can be adaptable, where you can do things that will completely shock the people around you. And therefore, when we look at the 5 things that I mentioned, timing and accuracy, relaxation, body conditioning, frequency, and last but not least, one of the most crucial elements, adaptability. These 5 elements take you through the full framework and how you can become the most efficient fighter when you step onto the mats. Because it's not about how many hours you train, it's not about who trains the hardest, it's about who is the most efficient, who is the master strategist, and who can master their own mind and their ability to think critically, not only when they're training, but when they're on the mats. And therefore, this is the full framework, all the things I wish I would have known before I started sparring. Without further ado, thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this podcast of the Arshansamimian Show. If you liked, please follow, subscribe, share this with your buddies. I would really appreciate it. And as always, stay blessed.